Well, it's not bad for a walk in the park in London, but boy, since you've been sworn in, it's been anything but a walk in the park for you. Have you felt the weight of this on your shoulders yet?
I felt an awful lot of busyness, but for me, the weight, the weight's always been there. I've always had the responsibility to do right by people who believed in me, whether it's folks in Papineau, whether it was the family and my own personal expectations, or now whether it's the country waiting for me to serve them right.
It's a little bit different though, isn't it? When the country is turning their expectations on you?
It's what makes it what makes it easier to deal with is the fact that yes, maybe the country has high expectations for me, but I'm making sure that I have equally high expectations of the country. This is not something I'm going to be able to do alone to build a brighter future for the country. It's something we're going to have to do together, and Canadians have been demonstrating to me, not just during the election campaign, but since, that they're just looking for opportunities to be part of it.
This may be a little bit unfair because you've only been sworn in for a couple of weeks, but have you found anything yet that keeps you awake at night?
Yeah. I have a 20-month-old.
Okay, I'll grant you that.
Listen, I have a tremendous amount of optimism about Canada, and it's not anchored in anything other than an understanding of what we're individually and collectively capable of. So, yeah, we've got some big challenges and concerns and things to deal with, but we've also got amazing opportunities and a real capacity to engage with them.
You know, governing, as they say, is always about making choices. And a prime minister spends most of his day, I think, making those choices. Are you the type of person who, once a choice is made, that's it? Or do you ever second guess yourself?
It's not about second guessing. It's about making the right choice at a given time and being open to continued discussion and arguments and new facts and evolution of a situation that allows you to update or improve on that decision.
But you don't go back on a decision and say, God, did I make the right choice there?
Once I've made a decision, we're busy dealing with the next steps of that decision, and looking back and saying woulda, coulda, shoulda is quite frankly something I just don't have time for in my schedule anymore.
How have you found that transition from opposition leader to prime minister? I mean, it is a completely different life. It is a completely different way from the moment you get up to the moment you go to sleep.
I'm surrounded by people who remind me that the office is bigger than I am. When I have security guards around me, it's not for me. The security guards are there for the Prime Minister. And I wield a responsibility, a duty to remember what is, what comes with the job I have right now.
You've already been to a couple of world summits, G20, APEC, you've got heads of government coming up later this week, and then of course Paris. What's been the biggest surprise for you in meeting the world leaders? Has there been somebody who stood out for you?
Angela Merkel is a lot more personable and engaging as a person than she is perceived to be. And I think that was one of the not surprises because I expected it, but it was nice to see how engaging with these leaders is engaging as one person to another. I mean, for all our responsibilities, for everything we do, we're still people with personalities and quirks and ups and downs and a genuine interest in being helpful and a passion for serving our country. And there is a sense that we are all part of a fairly particular club of people who have incredible responsibilities. But there's also a sense that we're we'd also love to kick back and have a beer at the end of the day.
Have you done that? Have you kicked back and had a beer with some of these people?
I have had beer actually there was a challenge in the Philippines actually getting them a beer. There was champagne and wine and juices of all type. I'm just like, no, I'll just have one of the local beers. And they actually had to run down to the little grocery store a block away from the conference center to get me a local beer, because I've been drinking local beers there. So yeah.
But for a lot of people, they might say, let me get this straight. So you just kicked back and had a beer with Barack Obama?
Not yet. Not yet.
But coming up.
Hopefully in the coming months.
Okay.
But you see, every different leader is sharing similar challenges. How do we keep our people safe? How do we grow our economy in a way that benefits the largest number of people? How do we make sure that our natural world, our climate doesn't end up going haywire and leaving our kids and grandkids with less of a future? I mean, these challenges, and we all come at it with different perspectives, but these are all challenges that drive us to greater and lesser degrees, and we have issues to talk about, and you can talk about them in formal bilateral settings with note takers and aides, but you can also share stories and approaches on a very human level as well. I think that's a really important part of international relations, personal relationships.
You know, it was interesting in the Premier's meeting that you had the other day. Somebody said with some pride, we kicked all the officials out of the room and it was just us. Do you find it easier that way, whether it's dealing with the premiers, dealing with other international leaders, to kick the aides out of the room? Do you get more done that way?
No. You get more done if you have a moment of personal connection that cuts through a lot of the formalities and nonsense, and then when you bring the aides and counselors and note takers back into the room, you've created a congenial, convivial relationship that allows you to move forward. So for me, with the premiers, it had been the first time since the premiers have sat down in years together with the Prime Minister. Only one of us around the table had ever been to a premiers meeting with the Prime Minister before. So I wanted to set the tone right and say, okay, you know what, we're all, I knew them all, or almost all of them, from having campaigned alongside them or met them at various times. But ultimately, having a moment to just sort of breathe and not have to worry about the notes taken and just chat about our passion for Canada individually and collectively, I think set us down on the right path.
I'm just looking over here, Prime Minister. That's Buckingham Palace right over there. You're going there later on today to meet with Her Majesty. You've met her before.
I met her a few times as a young child, yes.
Do you remember much about those meetings?
I do. I remember she was always lovely and gracious and very tall, which really points out how little I was at that particular moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. There were nice moments because I knew how much my dad liked her. My father was always incredibly pleased, more so than in other occasions where he'd introduce me to, I don't know, people like Ronald Reagan or something. You could tell my father was really, really proud to be introducing his son to the Queen.
Noticing we've got your first security threat here is a little dog.
Oh, puppy.
You brought two of your kids and Sophie along to meet the Queen. Why'd you do that?
Well, first of all, just the principle of bringing my kids with me from time to time is something that my dad did, something that my grandfather, actually, Jimmy Sinclair, who had 5 daughters as he was a cabinet minister, had told my dad, said, bring them with you when you can. It gives them good world experience and something that will be extraordinarily positive in their life, but also it gives you really good quality time with them. Because if you don't see them that much.
Plus, they get to see the Queen.
Yeah, that I was actually really pleased and touched. Apparently, she doesn't do that very often, but her friendship with my father and the fact that I first met her in a similar situation, I think the symmetry is somewhat nice.
I know these conversations are private, but can you let us in on what you plan to say to the Queen?
Oh, I plan to listen. Here's a woman who has chatted with and learned from and given advice to a dozen Canadian prime ministers over the years, and has a understanding and interest in the world that is certainly something I look forward to drawing on.
Do I take it from that then that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is not going to be trying to get rid of the monarchy in Canada anytime soon?
I can be a bit of a traditionalist, and I think she has served us extraordinarily well. And the fact is, we have, and I said many times during the election campaign, we have a lot of things we need to deal with. Cracking open the Constitution and trying to figure out changes to structure when we need to focus on how to actually create prosperity for the middle class and security and climate change improvements. I mean, these are things that we need to focus on, not structures.
Not surprisingly, a lot of people, when they talk to you, bring up your dad and the traditions that you grew up with and the political knowledge you grew up with, but I'd be interested in knowing, when you became Prime Minister, what advice did you get from your mom?
She's been giving me extraordinary advice throughout my political career about staying grounded, about remembering that my family is the most important thing, because without staying focused on the love of family and the grounding in what actually matters, I can't really have much of an impact out there in the world because I'm not doing the right kinds of things.
Is this fun for you?
Yeah, this is fun. I get to do something that I really like, which is, meet people, think hard about how best to help folks, learn constantly from experts, from interactions with others. I get to have an extraordinarily varied schedule where, every next hour has a completely different challenge. There's a huge range of things that I really do like about this job.
Just one thing about being here in London, so many prime ministers, not by tradition so much, but by want perhaps, have had their first major foreign bilateral in Washington, President of the United States. You've chosen London and David Cameron. Is there any significance to that?
No, it's scheduling. I mean, it's wonderful, but having had the G20 and APEC meetings sort of dominate, gave me an opportunity to have great sit-down meetings with a huge range of folks, and being here in Europe for the Commonwealth Heads of Government, and then a meeting to come see the Queen on our way to Chogam in Malta, meant that it just made sense for me to stop in and chat with David Cameron tonight.
Just got one final question for you. Your wife, Sophie Gregoire, has often said about you that you're an emotional guy. You're comfortable being emotional. Mm-hmm. You've shown that yourself. You're a very touchy-feely guy, the selfies, all this sort of stuff. Politics is an emotionally bruising business. Do you think that being that open to being emotional is a hindrance, or is that a help to you?
I guess you say politics is bruising because of the attacks and the perceptions that others have on you,
yeah.
But I've had that all my life. I've been, knocked around in the schoolyard, not hard because I can always fight back, but because of my father's job, I've had people, befriend me for the wrong reasons and then end up, leaving me feeling betrayed. I have had people judge me positively and negatively based on nothing other than perceptions or prejudice. And I have had to stay very, very strong within who I am and what I am. So I am, yes, a person who is, I don't know whether I'd say emotional. I'm certainly connected to my emotions in an open way, but don't ever make the mistake of thinking that someone who is emotional is somehow weaker or more vulnerable than anyone else. If there's anything my mom taught me, it's that emotions and being connected to them can be a tremendous source of strength. And I think that's one of the things that perhaps Canadians got to see in this past election campaign.
Prime Minister, I know you've got some stuff to do. I want to thank you for taking a walk in the park with me. That was great.
What a pleasure, Tom.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.